Hello, everybody. Happy Friday to you. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of the Rush Hour podcast. We have a big update regarding the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni feud that has really taken over entertainment news and the start of 2025. Justin Baldoni's attorney, pictured right here, says they plan on suing Blake Lively. She, of course, has filed a lawsuit against Justin, and his attorney, Brian Friedman, is a massive figure in the entertainment legal world. I'm going to share and share the video of what he had to say exclusively to NBC News, and also share some of the court documents and answer some of your questions after yesterday's bombshell 2-hour live stream where we read through the entire document. Now, you might say, Dave, what side are you on? I'm still in the acquiring information phase, and I suggest you'll live a happy life if you try to live in that phase as long as you're acquiring information. Now, I'll tell you where I lean with regard to what side I think is in the right versus wrong at the end of this video, so stick around for that. And if you want the audio version of the Twice Daily podcast, you can scan that QR code for the Rush Hour, and I'll also have that available here on YouTube as well, so tons of content to get into. Let's jump into what happened yesterday. Justin Baldoni's lawsuit over Blake Lively article alleges doctored texts and more. You know, the upside down smiling emoji was taken out of a text message in her complaint, and he alleges that ruins the sort of tone of sarcasm and completely throws her case out. In the New Year's Eve lawsuit that came out, Justin is suing the New York Times for $250 million, $250 million for several different reasons, including libel. It's going to be very hard to prove. But the New York Times, along with other news organizations of such magnitude, has proven time and again that they would prefer to settle these things versus go through the long process. The newspaper, in their First Amendment rights, will probably have a hard time losing that case, but it doesn't mean you don't file that lawsuit, especially because Justin Baldoni's got a $1 billion backer. Now, we're going to get into what was said that spurred the conversation of Brian Friedman, who's, by the way, pictured right here. We're going to share the video right here. Why he's being asked, hey, do you plan on suing Blake Lively? Well, it's pretty obvious. He said it right here in the lawsuit. I'm just going to read this paragraph. When Wayfarer and Justin Baldoni hired Blake Lively to appear in the film, they did not anticipate that she would execute a hostile takeover of the entire project. Lively's cynical abuse of sexual harassment allegations to assert unilateral control over every aspect of the production was both strategic and manipulative. Simultaneously, her public image suffered as a result of a series of high-profile blunders, which she tried to deflect by blaming plaintiffs for the public's prying interest into the foibles of an A-list celebrity. This is nothing but an excuse. Fame is a double-edged sword, but Lively's tactics here are unconscionable. Alongside the Times, she orchestrated a malicious attack on the reputations, careers, and personal lives of plaintiffs, subjecting them to public humiliation, threats, and vitriol. This lawsuit seeks to hold the Times accountable for its role in this defamation campaign, but plaintiffs are not done. There are other bad actors involved, and make no mistake, this will not be the last lawsuit. So when they say other bad actors, obviously they're referring to not just Blake, but anybody that maybe even her crisis PR. Who knows who else they may be coming after. But this is very interesting because at this point, we'll now get into what Brian Friedman said to NBC News. First, if anyone wants to follow along with this lawsuit, 87 pages here, it's actually available right now in our Patreon chat room. I've got a general chat for all of the members of the private community to share documents and information if you want to chat in an environment that is less a cesspool of random YouTube hate. No offense to you guys, we love you, but there are some bad actors out there. And this is more of the, I pay $5 a month, so I'm not going to be an a-hole version of that if you want it. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. So let's get into it. And by the way, sort of the times that we live in order for me to share this video, which is fair use, but sometimes the system gets tripped up and copyright strikes come down, I'm going to have to pause every 15, 20, 30 seconds and interject an opinion. That's just so we don't get the video taken down. Here is the conversation with Brian Friedman on NBC News.
Tonight, Justin Baldoni's lawyer speaking out for the first time since Blake Lively accused the actor of unprofessional and sexually inappropriate behavior on the set of It Ends With Us and a coordinated smear campaign to damage her reputation.
Was there a coordinated smear campaign to bring down Blake Lively?
100% no.
Lively has filed a civil rights complaint and a lawsuit against her co-star.
So they, Justin Baldoni's side, and this is where they're actually in the wrong. They accused her of just making this a publicity stunt by saying, oh, she only filed a complaint. She didn't actually file a lawsuit where she would have to be open to depositions and things like that. Well, the next day, we find out she actually did file a lawsuit. She just had to file the complaint first. Whether they said that in bad faith or not, they called her bluff. She doubled down and filed suit. You have to understand here, both sides have $1 billion war chest in their pocket to fight this. Justin Baldoni's side, his $1 billion investor, said he'd spend $100 million trying to take her down. In the sort of world of who you'd rather see win here, and by the way, I don't think we should be thinking that way, it's very complicated because if Justin's guilty of the things she's alleged, then he's a real creep. But if she's guilty of using that movement to try to take over the film, then that's also equally bad in a different direction.
Who also directed the film, where she claims that in retaliation for raising concerns, Baldoni and his team launched an online social manipulation campaign to destroy Lively's reputation. The New York Times published the first story about Lively's allegations. Now Baldoni and 9 other plaintiffs, including Baldoni's PR firm, are suing the paper for libel and say they plan to take further legal action.
Do you plan to sue Blake Lively?
Absolutely.
You will?
Yes.
In the filing, Baldoni's lawyers contend text messages were taken out of context or excluded.
Now, sometimes, as we've seen here, because I was threatened with a bunch of lawsuits this past year for my coverage of the Clayton Echard-Laura Owens case, where we exposed medical fraud and put her in a lot of hot water due to her own actions, I was threatened with an $80 to $120 million lawsuit. Yeah, that's right. So sometimes lawyers will say we're absolutely going to sue somebody, but it's just their bargaining. We'll have to see if that actually goes down. You might see a scenario. And again, it might be a little too late, but you might see a scenario where Blake's side sits down with Justin's side and tries to put this all to bed right now. It's almost like a terrible divorce where people would rather rip each other apart than give any money to the kids. Because at this point, it could cost them both $100 million in lawsuits. And what's going to happen at the end of it? People are going to say, I believe him or I believe her. I think what they should both do is release all the text messages. She can say, this is why I felt this way. He can say, well, this is why I felt that way. Handshake on it and just move on. Because I think they've called each other's bluffs. They ain't playing around. Again, that might be very naive of me, but I don't see a scenario where anyone wins if this goes through the legal system.
Including one appearing to show Lively inviting Baldoni into her trailer while pumping, which they say refutes Lively's claim that Baldoni would enter her trailer uninvited while she was undressed, including when she was breastfeeding.
We plan to release every single text messages between the two of them. We want the truth to be out there. We want the documents to be out there. We want people to make their determination based on receipts.
Now, the problem is some of the things that Blake alleged, there would be no text message proof. Like the weird scenes they were doing where he was crossing the metaphorical line when it comes to intimacy while they were shooting. He claims that she never wanted to meet with the intimacy coordinator. Well, it doesn't give you carte blanche to be weird. So again, there's going to be nuance here and things that aren't going to be provable. And I think Brian Friedman knows that, and they're banking on knowing that so far there's nothing in those text messages that makes him look bad. Again, that doesn't mean he didn't do other bad things. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. And that's what it's going to come down to is if you don't know, like, what then?
In a statement, the New York Times stood by its reporting and said we plan to vigorously defend against the lawsuit. A lawyer for Lively said nothing in this lawsuit changes anything about the claims and her complaints. While Lively previously said, I hope that my legal action helps pull back the curtain on these sinister retaliatory tactics to harm people who speak up about misconduct.
Now, I hate to compare lawsuits like this to previous lawsuits that might have nothing in common. I'll just say this. What's very difficult is wanting to trust, and we say this and it doesn't hold up in law, but falsus in uno, falseness in omnibus. And it means if you're false in one thing, you're false in everything. So the fact that Blake's side may have crossed a line by doctoring, cherry picking, or removing pieces of messages, that being the upside down emoji that would have indicated sarcasm in a message they were claiming made Justin Baldoni's crisis PR team take ownership over the smear campaign. When you have something like that may be wrong, you may discredit your whole side. And I hate to say that, but if she was going to file the HR complaint about what was done on set, it was on the straight and narrow, that would be one thing. But by bringing in certain things like claiming that Justin Baldoni was essentially showing them pornography when he was really showing an intimate birthing scene, which you could say is creepy, but it's certainly not just saying, hey, look at this pornography. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like you might have outkicked your coverage on that one. I relate it to, and this is a hotbed topic for a lot of people, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. I relate it to that in the sense that I could never get past the fact that Amber Heard said she donated the money from their settlement to the ACLU when it was proven that she never donated it. She only pledged to donate it. I could never get past that because that was a blatant lie. And when there's one blatant lie, I don't have trust for anything else that's being said. Now, you can have your opinions about that, and again, not to bring up different cases here, but when you look at Bachelor Clayton Echard versus Laura Owens, I was sent an HCG test that was supposed to prove that Laura Owens was pregnant. If you don't know the case, I've been covering it extensively for a year and a half. We later discovered that she changed the HCG result from a 102 level to 140,000 level, to a number that was completely not true, not factual. She ended up admitting this in a deposition. Now, she said she only lied about her medical information because I wasn't believing she was pregnant. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. The point being that if you lie about one thing, I have no reason to believe your authenticity with others. That's why it's so important for journalists to have ethical records and source their material and not lie about stories. It's the reason why Brian Williams was kicked off of the evening news, because he fudged a story at that point. Credibility is king here. So I'm not blaming Blake for what the lawsuit did, but the people she hired may have crossed lines there, and that might be the $250 million emoji. I could also have no idea what I'm talking about. This is just my opinions as a non-legal educated random person. So this again was reported not just on NBC News, but on the Today Show, because NBC synergistically, is that a word, is the human centipede of content. So now we have NBC commenting on what NBC said, and I'm commenting on NBC, commenting on NBC.
So Liz, Baldoni's lawsuit also mentions this interaction he says that he had with Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, of course. What did he say in that?
Yeah, Laura, so in that lawsuit against the New York Times, Baldoni says Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, aggressively berated him during a meeting at their New York apartment, accusing him of fat-shaming his wife. That's a claim Baldoni denies. Reynolds and Lively have not responded to that allegation about that meeting. Meantime, Lively is seeking compensation for what she says have been lost wages and mental pain. She says she suffered throughout all of this.
I don't understand the lost wages, but that's, billionaires be billionairing. I mean, they're going to have to, if you say you lost wages, did she lose a movie that she was supposed to be in because of this? I mean, this just happened. How do you prove that a movie says, well, due to your bad PR out there, we don't want to hire you? That's going to be tough, but hey, you could go for it. And again, I mean, I don't have any sympathy for lost wages with people that are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But if it's true, fair is fair. So I have got a couple of your comments. You guys leave great comments on the YouTube, and I think it's real insightful. I've asked people, where do you stand if it's, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely pro Justin, 1 being completely pro Blake. People are on the 3 level, the 9 level. You're really all over the place on this. When it comes to it, where do I stand right now is the question. And like I said, she's going to have her day in court to respond to his lawsuit, and he's going to respond to her lawsuit. There's going to be multiple lawsuits possibly happening at the same time. This is going to affect them for years, and they've really staked their whole brand and career to this at this point. If she can provide any more evidence, text messages with her friends or anything else that can corroborate her story, that'll be very damning. Well, again, we'll have to see more information that comes out, but it's wild stuff. So where do I stand on it? I'm pretty split down the middle on this one. His side is damn convincing. damn convincing that she did this hostile takeover. She could argue why she did a takeover, because she felt like they were butchering the story and this and that. Again, I want to see both. I want to see his version and her version. They say that they did an independent study and his version of the movie scored higher, and they ended up going with hers. Now, the question that lets me side more with Blake than with Justin is the unfollowing of all of the other actors. And you can write it off and say, well, they unfollowed Justin because she's got more opportunity with future movie deals and things like that. But Justin is attached to he owns the production company. So if the movie does well, he has the right to decide, I think, to greenlight a second movie, right? Not that would happen at this point. So let's answer some of your questions. Why did the cast unfollow him? Everyone said it's war, so let's put money on Blake and Ryan. They unfollowed Justin because they want to be in the second movie, and they know who will be the director. She was an actress cast for a role, ended up writing scenes, giving Deadpool's production to make the cut of the movie, held the film hostage, and we are now watching her cut. Justin didn't even produce his own movie in the end. What a trip. She saw the movie, fell in love with the florals, and said, I want this. The rest is history. Well, just because they ended up going with her version of the cut doesn't mean that she has the rights to the film. I still think he and Wayfair have the rights to the film. Although, who knows? I mean, how is it that Justin was kicked out of his own after party? I don't know. Maybe Sony, as a distributor, was able to have some control over it. I honestly don't know. Way above my pay grade. Dave, I get what you're trying to say regarding testing different versions and exploring fairness, but I think we need to focus on the core issue here. He's the director, Blake is not. He owns the creative rights to the film. Would someone like Spike Lee or Quentin Tarantino allow an actor to dominate the creative process to the extent of banning the director from their own project? While your suggestions come from a well-intentioned place, there's no justification for the director being stripped of control over their own work. Baldoni's lawsuit highlights a power play from Blake's side. This is a significant exertion of power that isn't being addressed, and it strikingly fails to align with the narrative of showcasing a victim's experience, at least not one I recognize or have witnessed. It's a great comment. I say this because while, yes, I understand the director has all the say, the producer has all the say, and if some random actor ever pulled a stunt like this halfway through a movie, they would just never work again. But that's not going to happen with Blake Lively. She's not going to never work again. If anyone had an issue with Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds has he's got big pull in the entertainment industry. So it's not just like she's a random actor here. She threatened to take the ball and run with it. The old kickball, I'm going to take the ball home if I'm losing. She threatened that. Whether she did it because she felt like she was justified or not, that's kind of going to be the core argument people make here. So I understand the point that it's his baby, and after we watched the text messages where he's shocked by the editor saying she's editing, she's not letting me see it. How's the director not allowed to see it? He was shocked, but everyone was shocked. And you go, well, that's just, the way the world works. Sometimes you get away with things and you go, well, I guess she does have the power to do that because that's exactly what she did. And whether or not she had receipts about Justin acting nefariously. You could look back on the sort of HR complaint that she had, the list of things. I'll come back if you don't harass me and don't walk into my trailer and don't do all this. He says, we agreed to it because we didn't have a choice. We weren't guilty of any of those things. And the truth is, we don't really have an HR complaint that was actually filed. Now, I am generally, in the sort of, history of my opinions on things like this, I generally side with the worker over the employer. In this case, Blake is the employee versus employer. Blake's the employee, and Justin Baldoni is the employer because he's the producer and all of that. I generally side with the employer here because in most cases, the employer is the one getting effed. But in the greater scheme of things, Blake's and Ryan Reynolds are kind of like the employer because they control or have a lot of power within Hollywood. So it's way more, and I know I just kind of botched my explanation, but it's way more complicated as her being just the employee who's getting stiffed. Well, in the end, she's probably doing better with the public relations view of it all. Look, I'm just trying to, be fair. Like I've said before, where I stand right now, I think Blake's going to make more money moving forward in her career than I think Justin will. Regardless of who wins this lawsuit, I think Blake has more upside to continue to make a livelihood than he does. We'll have to see how that goes. Great coverage, Dave. Appreciate the way you look at the possibilities behind this he said, she said. I find it very hypocritical when people like Nick Viall slam the public for taking one person's word for it while doing the exact same and taking the other person's word. He and his teenage wife have made a career out of it. Yikes. Well, look, I mean, thank you. But, I like to look at my channel giving my opinion, but also at the same time saying, will this opinion hold up? It's okay if things change. I've given crazy opinions about things, and then information comes out that's completely wrong, and people go, oh, Dave, you were completely wrong. Absolutely. I received more information, and I changed what I thought about it, and I reserve the right to do that. Where I stand right now, I feel a lot differently than when I just saw her complaint, her 80-page complaint. Seeing his complaint and seeing the text messages look a little differently when you see what was said before, middle, and after those text messages, you start to go, okay, well, this is definitely not as one-sided as one might have believed. I think the reason the whole cast doesn't follow Justin is deeper than disliking him. Being in the entertainment business, they would suck it up and still be following Justin if they simply didn't like him. He has a production company that produced a large budget film which he starred in and directed. They are taking a stance and sending a message by not following him. But what message and for what reason still hasn't been made clear. And depending on how these lawsuits shake out, they may never speak publicly about their reason and just let the public wonder and speculate about their motives. Let's go through this real quick. Either they're unfollowing him because they know what he did was wrong and they know something we don't, or they're unfollowing him because they want to be on the right side of the story as far as Blake moving forward. Does she promise them something? And again, it's very conspiratorial to talk like that, but did she promise them something? Because it's like if one person follows one versus the other, if the whole cast follows in one direction or the other, it's like either Justin's a real terrible guy, might be the case, or she said to each of them, look, I will bury you if you aren't 100% on my side with this. And they go, whoa, okay. In which case, squeaky wheel gets the grease. Again, I'm not saying that's the case, but that's an option. I'd love to hear your comments. You might think I'm crazy with my tinfoil hat on here, but if she is as coercive as he alleges, you could see that option being played out. Then again, she could be just the victim in all of this going, I can't believe this. I can't believe I've been treated so terribly, and yet he's somehow on top in all of this. I look at Brian Friedman, power attorney. I mean, this guy doesn't mess around. He's been on the winning side of a lot of these cases. It doesn't mean it's the right side. Two more questions. You skipped the most important part. Oh, this was the last question. Someone said, you skipped the most important part, paragraph 63. So let's go to paragraph 63. This is their allegations against her. Justin Baldoni said, in fact, Blake Lively threatened to quit the production altogether despite her contractual obligations. And again, if you threaten to quit in a normal world, you'd be blackballed from the industry, but she can get away with this. Lively gave Justin an ultimatum. Either cast someone else or work with her in the way she works. It was her way or the highway. Recasting would be detrimental to production, sever Wayfair's relationship with Sony, and cost millions. To highlight the effects of masterful gaslighting, Baldoni and Wayfair also truly believed that in an effort to save herself from the backlash of being recast, Lively could leak that she felt fat-shamed by Baldoni, which he thought would ruin his career. Notably, it appears he was not wrong, and despite his efforts to do everything her way, she still tried, continues to try, and arguably did, with the help of the Times, ruin his career, reputation, and well-being. It's fascinating stuff, folks. It's interesting stuff. Again, where do I side in all of this? Who the hell knows? And you know what? Embrace being okay to not know. In the recent past, I think we'd have someone's head on a stick. Oh, you're a so-and-so sympathizer. Oh, you're on team this. You're a Johnny Depp bro. You're a Bernie bro. You're a this bro. You're a that bro. We try to put people in sides to make them less than. And I think we need to move past that. I think the smart thing to do is say, you know what? As educated as I feel, with my critical thinking skills being worked as strongly as possible, I still don't know. And that's okay. If this thing does go to trial, we will possibly get a jury, and we'll see what they have to say. If it does go to trial, I will be in Los Angeles to cover it in its entirety, outside the courtroom, absolutely. Not just because this is a big story in the entertainment news world, but because I think it's a big story in the world moving forward with the ability to astroturf, use PR to manipulate storylines. Are we as easily manipulated as I think we are, and I think this has proven that we can be. We can be, every time you read one side, you're like, well, I really believe her. Then you read his side and you go, I really believe him. And it's damning, because I think the normal person, naive as they may be, innocently wants to believe people. And I think that's fair. We'll see how this all shakes out. All right, I'm going to go work on the Rush Hour podcast. That's coming up next. You can click that QR code if you want to listen to it on your drive home from work. Otherwise, you can just watch one of these videos and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll get all that content right there. Twice a day, every day. We'll see you then.